Billionaire Liu Ye was reborn in 1983, giving him the opportunity to make up for his guilt towards his wife and daughter. He carried the memories of 2 lifetimes and astonishing means of making a living, relying on the household contract of 1 acre and 3 fen of land to rise step by step, and finally lived another wonderful life. Keywords of the novel. Rebirth 1983. Village flower wife wants to divorce, no pop-ups, Rebirth 1983. Village flower wife wants to divorce, TXT complete collection download, Rebirth 1983. Village flower wife wants to divorce, latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Land package to household. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1, Land package to household. Midsummer. The scorching sun is scorching. Phomlin Town. Yanzi Ao Village Ancestral Hall. Production team leader Lu Hanming raised his hammer and struck the old copper bell hanging at the entrance of the ancestral hall fiercely. This is his last time ringing the bell after serving as the production team leader for over a decade. In the past, whenever the bell rang, the members would rush to the temple in 2s and 3s. Meeting. Dispatch workers. Plus boasting or arguing. 2 hours have passed in a blink of an eye. So, at the 7 o'clock clock, people often don't go to work in the fields until 9 o'clock. And today, the bell for parting ways is ringing. That is to say, the cultivated land of the production team needs to be contracted to each household, and managed independently by the farmers, who are responsible for their own profits and losses. The contracting period is 30 years. The superior said that the household contract responsibility system will be implemented. The people who attended the meeting today not only gathered quickly, but also very well. In addition to all male and female laborers, there are also many elderly and children gathered. They all opened their eyes wide, eagerly waiting for the results of the land division. The cultivated land of the production team is divided into several equal parts based on population and fixed grain, and then the winner is determined by drawing lots. Lu Hanming shouted. Liu Ye, it's your turn to draw lots. Someone forcefully poked Liu Ye, who was sleeping soundly in the corner. Liu Ye opened his eyes and saw a strange scene. Isn't this old ancestral hall the Liu family ancestral hall from the 1970s and 1980s? A mottled wall. Ancient flower-carved wooden windows. There are still so many neighbors and fellow villagers. They are all people from 40 years ago. When someone struck Liu Ye's head with a chimney again, he finally regained his senses. He returned from the 21st century to July 8, 1983. He saw his wife Li Tsueyu, whom he had been thinking about day and night, and his twin daughters Hua Hua and Lin Lin. The tragedy will happen tomorrow. On the morning of July 9 at 10 o'clock. My wife and daughter took a bottle of dichlorvos pesticide together. When they were dying, they still tightly hugged each other, curled up in a ball, like huddling together to keep warm in the cold winter. Thinking of this incident, Liu Ye suffered a great deal of pain all his life, never married, and focused on making money. Finally, at the age of retirement at 60, he accumulated a fortune of billions. At this point, he was diagnosed with advanced gastric cancer. Truly achieving, people in heaven, money in the bank. Me, is this back again? Liu Ye, hurry up and draw lots. Lu Hanming urged again. Liu Ye walked onto the stage with sleepy eyes and grabbed a lot from the box. Lu Hanming opened the lots and showed them to the members, shouting, Liu Ye's family consists of 4 people, and the contracted farmland number is 15 lots. The specific location is in the Wild Boar Ridge, covering an area of 1 acre and 3 cents. Upon hearing this news, there was an immediate commotion in the crowd. The Wild Boar Ridge is located in Zishanwu. This plot is surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, with high mountains and dense forests, and wild boars frequently appear. In order to prevent wild boars from stealing crops, the production team has organized multiple pig hunting operations. Led by the production team leader, more than 10 grassroots militia members were organized to wield homemade firearms on the field. Killed the wild boar and had a meal with all members of the production team. The whole village can hear laughter and joy, and some people will get drunk. Now, the plot of Wild Boar Ridge is undoubtedly a laughingstock for Liu Ye. Can a lazy and gambler who can only score 3 points still grow silver from the field? What's even more troublesome is that this cultivated land was opened up during the agricultural study Dazai period, transformed from wasteland into paddy fields, and relied on nature for food. Liu Ye cursed in secret. Shit, even drawing a lot is exactly the same as the previous generation. Upon hearing the news, Li Tsueyu burst into tears and turned her head to leave the venue, ignoring even 4-year-old Hua Hua and Lin Lin. Accountant Lu Haidao smiled faintly and said, "Liu Ye, you have time to play now. Even if you sleep at home every day, no one will care about you." A burst of laughter immediately came from the ancestral hall. That's right, Liu Ye from his previous life was just like this bird. Frequently sleeping in at home under the pretext of stomach pain, and working without effort is even more common. So, the salary he earns is particularly low, only 3 points, not even as good as a woman. Lu Haidao added, the conditions of the Wild Boar Ridge are not very good, but the area is calculated based on the size. As long as you can take care of it, it will still be enough for your family of 4 to live. If you get a real paddy field, it is estimated that only half of the area will be available. No one knew, Liu Ye's eyes were shining with a different kind of light. He was thinking to himself, damn it, since he's back, I'm going to build a small Western-style building within 6 months. Hua Hua, Lin Lin, Dad hug. Liu Ye walked home, holding his 2 daughters one by one. Hua Hua. Dad, can you stop having frequent stomach pains in the future? Lin Lin. Dad has a stomachache, so Lin Lin has to go hungry. Mom has to cry again. Dad, don't play cards anymore, it will make your mother cry. Dad, we are all very obedient and even add firewood to the stove for our mother. Liu Ye's nose was sore when he heard it. I owe the mother and daughter too much in my previous life. Good daughter, don't be afraid. From today on, Dad will be as strong as a cow, plowing our land smoothly. Dad is also planning for you to move into a tall and large Western-style house, and live as well as the city people. The 2 daughters giggled happily when they saw Liu Ye's painting. Liu Ye's heart is full of mixed flavors. Live again and never let your wife and daughter suffer from poverty again. The so-called home is actually just 2 dark and dilapidated rooms. The inner room is a kitchen and dining room, while the outer bedroom has 2 beds. 1 adult sleeps, 1 daughter sleeps. What's even more uncomfortable is that there is a wooden manure bucket at the head of the bed, which is equivalent to a future bathroom, making the entire room smell unpleasant. Li Tsueyu lay in bed, staring blankly at the crack in the roof tiles. The sunlight shines in through the cracks of the tiles, creating a mottled image on the muddy ground. Seeing Liu Ye carrying his 2 daughters home, Li Tsueyu's expression showed no reaction. Liu Ye could tell that her heart had already died. I have been married for 5 years, and almost every year I only have half a year's worth of food, with the other half relying on borrowing. The neighbors of Yanziao village have only about 100 households in total, and almost every household owes varying amounts of rice or rice. Some are a few liters, some are 100 or 200 pounds. The debt burden is getting higher and higher. Now we have obtained the farmland in the Wild Boar Ridge, which relies on the weather for a living. Don't say that Liu Ye is lazy and doesn't grow well. Even if it's planted well, it's specifically for working with wild boars. Tsueyu. Liu Ye called out softly, and Li Tsueyu turned her face to the inside of the bed, not wanting to look at him directly. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Forced Debt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Forced Debt. I know you hate me and look down on me. I assure you that from today on, I will work hard to support my family and ensure that you and your 2 daughters live a happy life. When he said these words, Liu Ye's mind was unusually sour, and his eyes were also wet. The windows of the old house are small and high, making the light inside appear particularly dim. Li Tsueyu's beautiful face was somewhat hazy in the shadows, making it difficult for Liu Ye to distinguish whether it was a dream or reality. After a lifetime of hard work, Liu Ye felt a little excited when he saw Li Tsueyu and his 2 little cotton-padded daughters again. Unfortunately, Li Tsueyu has given birth to nothing to love. In his previous life, Liu Ye not only did not coax her, but also invited a few friends from the village to play cards overnight. Until the tragedy occurred, he continued to gamble excessively at the card table. Just as I was thinking this, there was a knock on the door. 4 dogs shouted outside, Liu Ye, Qingbiao and Dong Hai are already in place. 3 are missing 1. Hurry up. Liu Ye opened the door and said apologetically, Sigu, you can find someone else. My wife is a bit uncomfortable. I need to stay and take care of her. Don't tease me, make up any excuses. You won my money yesterday, can't you go today? A hint of doubt flashed across the faces of the 4 dogs, full of disbelief. In the past, even if Liu Ye was still asleep, as long as he heard the call to play cards, he would suddenly feel refreshed. Today is like a different person. Sigu, what I said is true. I want to take photos of Gu Tsueyu and her 2 daughters. I don't have time to go out and play cards. This time, Liu Ye's attitude was very sincere. The 4 dogs sighed helplessly and left. Liu Ye was about to coax Li Tsueyu well when he heard a knock on the door. 4 dogs, didn't I say I wouldn't play cards? Liu Ye angrily said. Upon opening the door, 3 people stood outside. They have fair skin and tender flesh, long hair, plaid shirts, and bell-bottoms. The leader is Xia Bin, a notorious rogue leader of the large state-owned enterprise 713 factory. Xia Bin was holding a filtered cigarette in his mouth and asked with a displeased expression, Why are you so fierce, kid? Xia, brother Xia, why did you come? Liu Ye stuttered and asked. Xia Bin had no intention of entering the house. It was obvious that his feet couldn't step into the black and smelly farmhouse. Who the hell is your brother? You don't deserve it. Xia Bin spat out a few meters away from the cigarette butt and continued, When will you repay the money you owed me last time? Half a month ago, Liu Ye resorted to gambling with a group of fox friends. Xia Bin came midway. He didn't know what method he used, but he won the money all the way and took away 3,050 yuan from Liu Ye, of which 50 yuan had already been given in change and 3,000 yuan had been deposited into an IOU. Bin, my home. You've seen this too. Xia Bin gave Liu Ye a heavy pat on the shoulder and said, Don't tell me it's useless. Repay the money within 10 days. If you can't repay it, I'll tie up all your wives and daughters. Remember, I'm not a good person. If you owe me something, I must repay it. Li Tsueyu ran out of the room and grabbed Liu Ye's clothes, saying, How much money do you owe this person? How much do you want me to survive? Xia Bin looked at it and asked with a lewd smile, Hey, these little ladies are really handsome. I said you're good, kid. How about letting my younger siblings accompany me for a few nights and I'll charge less interest? Liu Ye shouted stubbornly, Xia Bin, please keep your mouth clean. I will find a way to repay the money within 10 days. Don't come and harass my family. Otherwise, it will be a death. If I die, you won't receive the money either. Tsueyu. Think of a way. Think of a way. What can you do? You're forcing me to die. Xia Bin saw that the young couple was about to argue and didn't want to wade into the muddy water. He threw down a sentence and said, All right, let's talk about your nonsense about cooking. I'll collect the money in 10 days. If I can't receive the money, young ladies, you can't blame my brother. After speaking, Xia been left with 2 young horses. Li Tsueyu had a murderous heart and tightened Liu Ye's collar, asking, "How much gambling debt do you owe him?" 3,000. Liu Ye said weakly. Pop. A slap in the face hit Liu Ye and he shouted, 3,000. You've lost 3,000. You're trying to save the lives of our mother and daughter. Li Tsueyu cried and tore at Liu Ye, spreading all her anger on him. In the previous life, Liu Ye struggled with her like a ball. Li Tsueyu committed suicide by taking poison with her daughter because of the huge gambling debt of 3,000 yuan. Now Liu Ye has chosen to endure. He painfully covered his feverish face and said, "Tsueyu, I know I was wrong. I will find a way to deal with it." Think of a way. What do you think of? With your ability, you can't save 3,000 yuan in 10 years. In 10 days, you can repay them 3,000 yuan. Do you want to rob a bank? Do you know what kind of devil Xia Bin is? I heard that he won't even let his own sister-in-law go. Li Tsueyu rushed forward and tore again. Liu Ye's body was filled with bursts of tearing pain. His body was left with numerous scars created by Li Tsueyu's nails, but he remained silent. This was a bit unexpected for Li Tsueyu. Li Tsueyu was tired from the fight, squatting on the wall, covering her face and sobbing. In this era, 3,000 yuan is equivalent to 10 years of salary for a private teacher. Why didn't Li Tsueyu worry about such a huge sum of money, even causing a notorious rogue leader from all over the country? Liu Ye said. "Tsueyu, forgive me for not taking care of you before. Please give me a chance." Liu Ye knelt on the ground, tears streaming down his face. That pain cannot be described in words. Reborn, he really wants to make up for his previous life. Take care of yourself. What are you taking care of? We didn't have anything to eat today. How do you take care of me? Why am I so unfortunate? Li Tsueyu roared angrily. Liu Ye opened the tile jar of shengmi and saw that there was not a single grain of rice inside. Liu Ye was shocked. There is no rice left at home, and I, as the head of the family, don't even know. The grain of early rice has just been distributed. Liu Ye's family of 4 divided 350 kilograms of rice. In less than a month, there were only 100 kilograms of rice left. These rice grains are packed in 2 snake skin bags and stacked in the corner of the wall. The reason is simple. I owe someone else's food to repay. Otherwise, I won't be able to borrow it next time. Li Tsueyu angrily said, "Our whole family only has these 2 bags of rice left, and we still owe over 100 kilograms of rice outside. If the late rice cannot be harvested, our whole family will have to drink from the west and north. Liu Ye, let me ask you, how will this family live? Wife, don't be afraid. I will definitely find a way. I not only want you to have white rice, but also want you to have flesh and blood to eat." Upon hearing this, a hint of sarcasm appeared on Li Tsueyu's face and she said, "Liu Ye, we have been married for 5 years. I'm not sure what your character is. Look at Hua Hua and Lin Lin, what have they all become? Aren't you a father who cares? Do you know that many times in our family, the water in the pot has already boiled, and we don't know where to borrow rice from?" Hua Hua and Lin Lin heard their parents arguing and each hugged one person's thigh. They looked up, their eyes full of begging. "Dad, stop arguing. I won't say I'm hungry anymore. Mom, I won't steal my sister's food anymore." Hua Hua and Lin Lin spoke one by one, constantly shaking their parents' thighs, tears filling their eyes. They are all afraid that their parents will fight again. Liu Ye let out a long sigh and said, "Tsueyu, I don't want to argue with you for anything. I have to take action now. There is a bottle of dichlorvos hidden under the bed. It was this bottle of pesticide that took the lives of my wife and daughter." He got under the bed and took out the bottle of dichlorvos. Li Tsueyu asked, "What do you want to do?" End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Fighting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Fighting. Liu Ye said, "The green beans in the vegetable field have grown worms. I need to go kill them. Also, the self-owned land in Zindewen has been abandoned for 3 years. I need to replant a season of sweet potatoes as soon as possible, maybe it can help us get through the famine next spring." Taking out the pesticide, he picked up the manure bucket placed by the bedside, carrying a hoe, firewood knife, etc., and Liu Ye went out. Behind her, there was a hint of doubt in Li Tsueyu's eyes. If it were in the past, once there was a dispute between the two sides, Liu Ye would resort to physical violence within a few words. The couple may even get beaten up and bleed. Poor people have had their last meal but not their last, and they often have to be beaten by their husbands. Life is really unbearable, and Li Tsueyu has thought of death many times. Once, she even jumped into a pond in the village to commit suicide, but by chance, she was seen by the villagers and did not die. On the way to Zindewen, Liu Ye met Liu Hanming head-on. According to seniority, Liu Hanming is Liu Ye's cousin. Liu Ye's father, Liu Handong, once served in the military and was resettled as a staff member in the grain management office after discharge. With Liu Handong's special identity, it is not difficult to make some cheap food such as rice, oil, and noodles. So, Liu Ye's teenage life was not poor. Unfortunately, in the second year after Liu Ye and Li Tsueyu got married, Liu Handong passed away due to illness. Liu Hanming smiled and asked, "Xiao Yi, as soon as you get a household contract, you start to be proactive. Uncle, if you don't get tough, you'll get hungry. I used to make everyone laugh at me." Liu Ye carried a bucket of feces on his shoulder and a hoe in his hand. The bottle of dichlorvos and a firewood knife, which had once taken the lives of his wife and daughter, was hung on the shoulder pole. "Ha ha ha, as I said, all the kids from our Lao Lu family are good. Liu Han will be over 60 next year, even his beard will turn white." Seeing Liu Ye's performance, there was an indescribable sweetness in his heart. Zindewen is about 2 kilometers away from Yanzhou village on a mountain road. With Liu Ye's thin and weak physique, he carried the bucket of feces so far that by the time he reached his destination, his shoulders had already worn through the skin. He sat on the grass on the ground, panting for a while, slowly calming down his mood. The area of self-owned land is 2 acres. Belongs to the dry land on mountain slopes. The land is actually black soil, quite fertile, suitable for growing sweet potatoes. Liu Ye shook off his arm and vigorously swung his hoe to dig the ground. The sun has shifted westward. The sound of night birds returning home came from the tall and short forests. The wasteland covered with wild grass was like being plowed by a cow, and all the wild grass was uprooted, waiting for the sun to shine tomorrow. In this way, dried wild grass can be converted into fertilizer. A wild rabbit poked its head in the grass and looked curiously at Liu Ye, the unwelcome guest. Liu Ye realized that his own private land had been abandoned for too long, and even these wild animals were not afraid of him. Liu Ye couldn't help but brighten his eyes as he was worried about the family's dinner being nowhere to be found. Liu Ye disposed of the bottle of dichlorvos and cut a bamboo on the mountain, making a bamboo dart as quickly as possible. In his previous life, he started his career by picking up junk and gradually became a billionaire. Apart from focusing solely on making money, he also spent some of his spare time on fitness activities such as hunting, swimming, and running. Now, his top priority is to solve the dinner for a family of 4. Night slowly falls. Liu Ye was holding a bamboo spear in his hand, and he suddenly came to his senses. The surrounding area of Yanzhou is known as the 10,000 Mountains. The continuous mountains hide countless birds and animals. In the era of planned economy, the labor force of every household had to work hard and earn wages, but they overlooked the treasure of the mountains themselves. At this moment, Liu Ye felt that the mountains in front of him were his own granary and money bag. Even if the production team didn't allocate land to him, it wouldn't be a big deal in future generations. That wild rabbit with gray and white fur is very beautiful, fat and strong. Seeing Liu Ye, it was obvious that he was not prepared to run, but walked slowly towards the depths of the dense forest. This action is simply an insult to Liu Ye's intelligence. Liu Ye swung vigorously, and the bamboo spear came out, nailing the wild rabbit to the ground. The wild rabbit twitched a few times before being completely isolated. Liu Ye lifted it with his hand. It should weigh over 10 pounds. As Liu Ye was carrying the wild rabbit and preparing to triumph, he felt a chill in his back. Deep in the dense forest, there are a pair of green and sparkling eyes. Seeing these fierce eyes, Liu Ye couldn't help but burst into a cold sweat. Wild wolf. As the saying goes, banks form a duo. Wild wolves, as a type of wild animal, are social animals. Rarely act alone. Liu Ye couldn't help but secretly complain. With such a strong physique and several hours of continuous work, my physical strength has been exhausted. How can I still have the strength to fight against the wild wolf? If one move is not careful, one is likely to become a dinner in the mouth of a wild wolf. Liu Ye, holding a wild rabbit in one hand and a dripping bamboo spear in the other, stepped back step by step and walked out of the dense forest. He takes a step back, and the wild wolf follows further. A few minutes later, Liu Ye had retreated to the newly excavated wasteland, and his back felt a chill again. Looking back, my head couldn't help but explode. The other wolf has cut off his path and is waiting for him to approach. Liu Ye remained calm on the surface, quickened his pace, and rushed to the middle of the plot. In this way, he and the two wolves were placed in a pin shape instead of being in a passive pincer position. Come on. Liu Ye held a sharp bamboo spear in his hand and roared in his mouth. Those two wolves, however, behaved even more calmly and viciously than him. They all squatted on the ground with their hind legs, their center of gravity shifted back, and assumed a ready-to-attack posture. So, Liu Ye's roar did not make the wild wolves afraid, it seemed to have strengthened their confidence. Time gradually dissipated in the confrontation between the two sides. Liu Ye relies on strong willpower to sustain himself. For him, killing a wild rabbit is easy, and if he wants to kill two wild wolves, he really doesn't know who the winner is. War cannot be won. Escape, can't escape. If there was only one wild wolf, even if Liu Ye tried his best, even if it was a life-or-death battle, there would still be a slight chance of winning. He is facing two wild wolves. The probability of winning is almost zero. With a sudden inspiration, Liu Ye threw out the dead rabbit and roared, "Damn it, you guys are hungry. I'll keep it for dinner, won't you?" The rabbit fell in the middle of two wild wolves. Unfortunately, the two wild wolves did not look directly at the rabbit, but continued to maintain a standoff with Liu Ye. Liu Ye secretly complained, "These two beasts don't want to eat wild rabbit meat, but want to eat human meat. I, as a skinny bird, don't have much meat all over except for my skeleton." As long as Liu Ye loses his composure and two wolf packs attack, he will die tragically. Gradually, Liu Ye realized that the wild grass had already dried up in the wasteland that was first excavated. With a sudden inspiration, he lit up the wild grass again. As the thick smoke gradually rose, flames also emerged. Liu Ye hid behind the flames. The wild wolf is a bit scared. Their eyes were filled with malice, gradually replaced by helplessness and lack of confidence. Liu Ye not only has bamboo darts here, but also weapons such as hoes and firewood knives. Just as one of the wild wolves wanted to escape into the dense forest, Liu Yimao threw a bamboo spear with all his might. Sure. The bamboo spear was inserted from the back of the wild wolf and came out from the other side, giving it a penetration. Roar. Another wild wolf let out a strange cry and rushed towards Liu Ye like a gust of wind, opening its big mouth and biting directly at Liu Ye's throat. Liu Ye casually swung the hoe and hit the wild wolf's mouth with it. The wild wolf bit on the wooden handle of the hoe as if it had gone crazy. Click. The handle of the hoe is broken. The wolf's mouth was also severely injured, covered in blood. This does not affect the combat effectiveness of wild wolves at all. I saw its body swaying and rushing towards Liu Ye again. At this point, Liu Ye had no weapons in his hands. There is a firewood knife several meters away. Liu Ye rolled and just got the firewood knife. The wolf's front paw had already pounced on his back, causing him a piercing pain. Liu Ye rolled 2 more times, wanting to distance himself from the wild wolf, but to his surprise, the wolf deftly leaped and pounced on Liu Ye. The big mouth of the blood bowl has already opened. Liu Ye can even smell the foul odor emitted by wild wolves. In a moment of urgency, Liu Ye inserted a firewood knife into the wolf's mouth and pulled it in another direction. Tear it off. A sound of flesh. The wolf's mouth opened wide and blood gushed out. The wild wolf in agony wanted to run away, but Liu Ye cut off a wolf's leg with another blow. Next. The firewood knife fell like raindrops on the wild wolf. Liu Ye was like a crazy killer who had lost his sanity, fighting frantically until his opponent had no movement. The wild wolf, pierced by a bamboo spear, was already on the brink of death due to its severe injuries. Liu Ye waved his firewood knife again and struck the wild wolf's head fiercely. The moon has risen. Liu Ye, carrying 2 wild wolves and a wild rabbit, left the new bay with very tired steps. The mountain road is rugged. The mountain wind is rustling. Liu Ye suppressed the pain in his back and worked hard to accelerate his pace. He is really worried that if he encounters jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards again, he might die again. Finally, Liu Ye walked into the village entrance. From afar, he saw a familiar figure walking towards him. She is Li Tsueyu. Liu Ye weakly shouted, "Tsueyu, I'm here." Li Tsueyu approached and was startled. Liu Ye, who appeared in front of her, had already turned into a bloody person. With a splash, Liu Ye's eyes darkened, and he fell to the ground without knowing anything. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Going to the county town. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Going to the county town. Oil lamps are like beans. There are heavy shadows. I'm not dead. Liu Ye's eyelids twitched and he saw Li Tsueyu's anxious expression wavering in front of him. Uncle Ming, Xiao Ye is awake. Li Tsueyu wept with joy and tightly held on to Liu Ye's hand, afraid that he might fly away. Xiao Yi. Captain Liu Hanming also exclaimed excitedly, feeling relieved. Liu Ye wanted to move, but his whole body was in pain. Especially on the back, it is estimated that a piece of meat has been torn off by the wolf's paw. The piercing pain forced him to grit his teeth and gasp for air. Sit up and have some rice soup. Li Tsueyu helped Liu Ye up and asked him to lean against the bedside. Then feed Liu Ye a small spoonful. Liu Ye happily drank rice soup, and his guilt increased a bit. Why didn't you cherish such a good wife from your previous life? Liu Hanming saw that Liu Ye was no longer in big trouble and found an excuse to leave. 2 precious daughters, one on the left and one on the right, sat next to Liu Ye, their faces filled with pride. Hua Hua. Dad, a lot of people just came to our house and they all said you're a great hero. Lin Lin. My dad is a hero. One person killed 2 wolves, who dares to compete with my dad? I learned from the mouths of my 2 daughters that all the neighbors in the village who could come had come to see him. After drinking the delicious new rice porridge, Liu Ye asked, Wife, isn't there no rice in our house? Li Tsueyu said, I borrowed 5 liters of rice from Grandma Shan's house, and I will return it to her when our house has the rice. Third grandma is an old woman from the Liu Zushan family. She is Liu Zushan's 3rd wife, and it is said that she came to Yanzhou from a certain province in the southwest to beg for food. Liu Zushan had a violent personality throughout his life and even practiced martial arts. Not many people in the village dare to provoke him. His first wife gave birth to 2 sons, but later died of difficult childbirth. The second wife gave birth to 2 more sons. The couple had a fight, and soon his wife inexplicably died again. In the year Grandma Shan arrived at Yanzhou, Lu Zushan was already 60 years old. He is 60.3 this year. They have 4 sons in name, but none of them are actually the biological descendants of Grandma Shan. Even if it was Lu Zushan's biological child, there was not a son who was good to him and could not receive a penny of support throughout the year. At the age of over 60, one must still dig into the land to eat, otherwise they will starve to death. What surprised the villagers was that Lu Zushan was always hitting and scolding his 2 wives in front of him, but he was surprisingly good to his grandmother and listened very much to her. Li Tsueyu said, "I heard you were injured, and the villagers are all anxious. Grandma Shan gave us a small bottle of aged rapeseed oil, which she said has the effects of promoting muscle growth and detoxification. I have just applied rapeseed oil to 12 wounds all over your body." Upon hearing these words, Liu Ye couldn't help but feel a hint of emotion. In the previous life, after Lu Zushan's death, Grandma Shan had no biological son under her lap and was driven out of the house by those rebellious sons, once again embarking on the old path of begging. Later on, I never heard from her again. Liu Ye's eyes were slightly moist as he said, "Grandma Shan has treated us so well, we cannot mistreat her. Her sons must be unreliable. Once the old man dies, I want to take care of her." Li Tsueyu remained silent for a few seconds and said, "Then you also need to have your own achievements. You can't even make it through 3 meals a day. Why talk about helping others?" Liu Ye said firmly, "Tsueyu, early tomorrow morning, I will push them to the 713 factory vegetable market to sell for money." Li Tsueyu gave him a white glance and asked, "You owe Xieb in gambling debts. If he sees you, wouldn't he take your money? Then go to the county vegetable market. Anyway, I bought it with my life, so there's no reason not to turn it into money. Besides, these are all wild animals that city people really like and can sell for a good price. I think it's possible. However, we'll have to wait for your injury to heal." "Wait for my injury to heal? How could this be? I'm asleep, try to wake up in the middle of the night. Huiyu, can you help me borrow a cart from the captain's house?" "Okay." It is a 15-kilometer journey from Yanzhou to Raozhou County. In this era, all roads are dirt roads, there are no concrete roads or asphalt roads. A sunny day covered in dust and a rainy day covered in mud is the best portrayal of highways in this era. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Liu Ye endured the excruciating pain and loaded 2 wild wolves and a wild rabbit onto the flatbed truck, preparing to embark on the road alone. Li Tsueyu also got up. She said weakly, "Liu Ye, you just suffered such a serious injury and you still have to walk 30 miles alone. I don't feel at ease. I want to go to the county town with you." Liu Ye felt a bit embarrassed and asked, "What should Hua Hua and Lin Lin do?" After hesitating for a moment, Li Tsueyu said, "I'll let them go together. Hua Hua and Lin Lin are still asleep." Li Tsueyu lifted them onto the flatbed truck, but they didn't wake up either. 2 wild wolves and a wild rabbit were put into a snake-skin bag and placed behind the flatbed truck. Weighing scales, machetes, etc. are packed in another bag. Hua Hua and Lin Lin's 2 daughters sleep at the front of the flatbed. Liu Ye is pulling the cart in front, and Li Tsueyu is pushing the cart behind. Based on his memory, Liu Ye quickly found the road leading to Raozhou County. At around 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, Liu Ye and his family had already entered the county town. Hua Hua and Lin Lin also woke up. They saw tall buildings with 5 or 6 floors, and the roads became very wide. They immediately became excited and kept asking incessantly. Li Tsueyu is also visiting the county town for the first time and is not familiar with it. The task of answering the 2 daughters will be completed by Liu Ye. When they found out that this was the county town, they shouted, I will come to the county town to study in the future. This place is much better than our village. Cars and bicycles have gradually become more common. The street occasionally rings with the sound of sirens and bicycle bells. Although the floors of the county town at this time were not as high as in later generations, and the street market was not as prosperous as in later generations. But it's already enough to stimulate the nerves of Li Tsueyu and her two daughters. Seeing them so happy, Liu Ye's heart was filled with mixed feelings. This backward county town makes them so happy. If they were to know to what extent the prosperity of future generations has reached, would their minds still turn around? Number 20 Dongxing Road. County Vegetable Market. Liu Ye pushed the flatbed truck towards the entrance of the vegetable market and immediately felt worried. Every stall in the market seems to have its owner, where is the place where one can sell wild game? At this moment, a middle-aged woman wearing a business uniform and holding a receipt walked in from outside. Liu Ye quickly welcomed him and asked with a smiling face, "Comrade, may I ask where there is still a booth?" End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Earns a lot of money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Earns a lot of money. The middle-aged woman asked, "Where did you come from?" Liu Ye. Fenglin Town. Yesterday, I met 2 wild wolves and started fighting, but we ended up killing them. The reason why Liu Ye said it so clearly is that he is afraid of accidentally breaking any wildlife protection law and being caught as an illegal person. The middle-aged woman was a bit skeptical, her brain seemed to be running rapidly. After a moment of confusion, she asked, "With you? Kill 2 wild wolves?" Liu Ye sincerely explained, "Comrade, what I said is true. My back and hands are all covered in scars." After speaking, he opened his shirt and revealed a large, terrifying wound on his back. The middle-aged woman tisk twice and said, "You've really found a life. There's a temporary booth over there, you just need to pull the flatbed truck to the temporary booth and pay some temporary management fee." Liu Ye was excited for a moment and asked, "How much is it?" 2 cents. Li Tsueyu immediately gave the middle-aged woman 20 cents, and she issued a temporary receipt for payment. The flow of people in the vegetable market is gradually increasing. Many people rush to buy groceries and then rush to work. The temporary stall is located at the innermost side of the vegetable market and is hardly visited by anyone. Li Tsueyu, along with Hua Hua and Lin Lin, squatted in front of the stall, accompanying Liu Ye to sell game together. Not long after, Hua Hua and Lin Lin shouted that they were hungry. Liu Ye. Tsueyu, take your 2 children around. If you have something delicious, buy them. Steamed buns, mantou, deep-fried dough sticks, tea egg, bread, etc. are all children's favorite foods. After speaking, Liu Ye took out a 2 yuan banknote from his pocket. Li Tsueyu glanced at him and asked, "So you still hid your private money?" Liu Ye scratched the back of his head and smiled awkwardly. That is the last bit of capital used for playing cards, and it is now officially handed over to the public. Watching his wife and daughter happily disappear into the crowd, Liu Ye's eyes became slightly moist. Today in the previous life was their anniversary. In this lifetime, they came to the county town from the small mountain village of Yanzhou. This is a bustling world that they have never seen before. "Hey, how do you sell this game?" A voice rang out. Liu Ye looked up and saw 2 big men holding vegetable baskets in their hands. Seeing them, Liu Ye's mind immediately came up with a noun. A purchaser. There are several state-owned enterprises in Raozhou County. These state-owned enterprises all have canteens. The purchaser in the cafeteria is specifically responsible for buying groceries and has a lot of power. Liu Ye was secretly pleased and asked, "Do you want to buy a wild wolf or a wild rabbit?" One of the buyers smiled and said, "If we buy everything, would it be cheaper?" "Of course." Liu Ye picked up the pull scale and weight and said, "Wild wolf meat costs 2 yuan per kilogram, and wild rabbit meat costs 2 yuan per kilogram. In this era, only 60.70 cents is sold per kilogram of pork. The purchaser didn't bargain with him and asked, "Where did this game come from?" "Liu Ye. I called. Did you take it?" A hint of distrust flashed across his face and he asked again, "With you?" Liu Ye took off his shirt, revealing the scars on his back. The shocking appearance frightened the two purchasers quite a bit. Next, Liu Ye carefully explained the process of the incident again. The vivid appearance seems to make the purchaser feel the danger on sight. One of the purchasers said, "With your bravery, it's worth my respect. We'll buy all these games, and the price will be as you say. Xiao Fan, help us weigh together and see how many pounds there are." The price Liu Ye mentioned is the net weight, which is the weight of the game meat. The purchaser didn't seem to care, but asked Xiaofan to help Liu Ye weigh the gross weight together. 2 wild wolves, one weighing 59 pounds and one weighing 62 pounds. The total weight is 121 pounds, 2 yuan and 1 pound, totaling 242 yuan. The wild rabbit weighs 12 pounds, totaling 2.8 yuan per pound, totaling 33.6 yuan. The total amount of the two transactions is 275.60 yuan. If you round off the 5,600 yuan change, I'll make you a whole number, 2,750 yuan. How about that? The purchaser is using a pen to calculate on a piece of paper, and his result has not yet come out. Liu Ye has already said the exact number. The purchaser's face showed a satisfied smile and self-deprecatingly said, "Young man, don't be fooled by your clumsy legs. Your mental calculation ability is even stronger than mine, a vocational school student. Okay, we'll do as you say. Xiaofan, you pay." The purchaser continued to explain, "Young man, my surname is Jiang. Just call me Lao Jiang. Xiao Fan and I are both purchasers in the cafeteria of Pioneer Machinery Factory. Due to business needs, our cafeteria often hosts salespeople from out of town, and of course, game is something we need. It's just such a heavy thing, we're not lucky. Can you help me pull it with a cart?" Liu Ye has received 270 yuan, and his heart is not ordinary ecstasy. He quickly said, "Wait a few minutes for me. My wife and children are nearby, and I can't leave them alone. Find them, we'll help you pull them over." Quickly, Liu Ye found Li Tsueyu and her 2 daughters in front of a steamed bun shop. Liu Ye excitedly shouted, "Tsueyu, hurry up, our game has been sold." Hua Hua and Lin Lin each hold a big meat bun in their hands. Li Tsueyu held four mantou in her hand. She asked inexplicably, "So fast? How much did it cost?" 270 yuan. Liu Ye explained while walking. This number almost scared Li Tsueyu. She repeatedly asked, "You didn't lie to me, did you? I haven't been fooled to death by you in these years." Liu Ye simply stuffed a large handful of money into Li Tsueyu's bag, holding Hua Hua and Lin Lin. As Li Tsueyu walked and counted the money, tears were almost streaming down her face. Married from Li family village to Yanziao and lived with Liu Ye, a promiscuous person, for 5 years. This was the first huge sum of money she saw. Arriving at the temporary booth, only Xiaofan was waiting there alone. Xiaofan smiled and said, "Master Jiang has already left. He also needs to buy other dishes. Let me take you back to the factory. Thank you for your hard work." As Liu Ye was preparing to pull the cart, Xiaofan added, "Sister-in-law is so beautiful." Liu Ye smiled proudly and said, "She is the flower of our Yanzhou village. She is the first in the whole village." Li Tsueyu's face turned crimson and she scolded angrily, "Can you be more serious? You just know how to be talkative." Liu Ye asked his 2 daughters to ride on the flatbed together. The 2 daughters have bulging mouths and are still eating big meat buns. Seeing their enjoyment and happiness, Liu Ye's heart was sweet. In any era, money is the king. The days without money are really painful. Passing through about 2 streets, they saw a large factory building ahead. At the door, Liu Ye asked the mother and daughter to stand by the roadside near the security room and wait, pulling a cart to follow Xiao Fan into the factory. The security guard in the security room saw Xiao Fan leading the way and didn't say a word more, so he let go directly. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Must Lie. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Must Lie. Old Zhang's real name is Jiang Jinliang. Veterans. Perhaps due to his military background, Jiang Jinliang's nature is to like men with blood. Liu Ye killed 2 wolves alone, which impressed Jiang Jinliang. As a cafeteria purchaser, he has more seniority and greater power than Xiao Fan. When Liu Ye walked to the door, Jiang Jinliang rode a Type 28 Long March bicycle back. Jiang Jinliang got off his bicycle and asked with a smile, "Xiao Lu, are you done?" "It's done. Master Jiang, thank you very much." "Thank you for something." "That's the money you exchanged with your life. If I hadn't seen your injuries all over, I wouldn't have made up my mind. This is a huge expense. Now I can tell you that our factory has 4,000 to 5,000 employees, and the consumption of the cafeteria is very high. If you still have game in the future, you can directly bring it to our cafeteria to avoid being brought to the market and paying business management fees. Brother Jiang, you've really been a big help to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been happy anymore," Liu Ye said passionately. Jiang Jinliang asked, "Is it so serious?" Liu Ye concealed his life experience as a promiscuous son, only saying that his father passed away due to illness and owed 3,000 yuan in foreign debt. These money are all high-interest loans that will generate interest. By planting 1 acre of land and dividing it into 3 parts, which year can we repay these debts? After playing a sad card game, Jiang Jinliang let out a sigh of relief and said, "I think you can rely on the 100,000 mountains of Yanziao to provide game specifically for our cafeteria. This kind of mountain delicacy is not only needed by business units, but also loved by enterprise employees. Just the price, you can also lower it a bit." That's of course. Upon hearing this, Liu Ye was so excited that he almost kowtowed to Jiang Jinliang. The gross weight was taken as the net weight, but Jiang Jinliang didn't care. Liu Ye found a great bargain and also found a way to make money. Jiang Jinliang gave Liu Ye a small note and said, "Here is my office phone number. If you have any stock, you can let me know in advance." Dad, we're here." As soon as Liu Ye showed his head, he heard the shouts of Hua Hua and Lin Lin. The mother and daughter stood by the roadside at the factory gate waiting for a long time. Liu Ye checked the time and it was 10:30 in the morning. Li Tsueyu held the money earned from selling wild game in her arms, and her mood didn't seem so bad. "But I can't see how good it is either. It can be seen that Xie Bin's huge gambling debt is still weighing heavily on her heart. In this era, 10,000 yuan is a huge wealth. 3,000 yuan is really not a small amount." Liu Ye kissed the yellow faces of his 2 daughters and asked, "Well behaved, is the big meat bun delicious?" "Delicious. As long as you are obedient and listen to your mother, Dad will make you often eat big meat buns." Liu Ye put both daughters into the flatbed car one by one and said, "Tsueyu, you can also get in the car." The 2 daughters entered the county town on a flatbed for the first time, and joy hung on their faces. They chattered incessantly between each other, with endless novelty. Li Tsueyu glared at Liu Ye and said, "You just got injured, don't show off. Also, don't deceive your children in the future. How could a family like us often eat big meat buns? Hee hee. Tsueyu, we found the treasure." Liu Ye pulled the flatbed truck while falling into joy. Based on the experience of 2 generations, Liu Ye deeply knows that Jiang Jinliang is the nobleman in his life. In the future, specializing in hunting wild game in the mountains and selling it to the cafeteria of Pioneer Machinery Factory will definitely earn a lot of money. Li Tsueyu's gaze was strange, she glanced at her and hesitated to speak. Liu Ye could tell that Li Tsueyu's heart was filled with suspicion. Just selling the game once and thinking you found a treasure. I don't know what to do with Xie Bin's 3,000 yuan gambling debt. Li Tsueyu angrily said, did you rob the bank? This business is similar to robbing banks. Liu Ye repeated Jiang Jinliang's promise, but Li Tsueyu still didn't believe it. Liu Ye, you don't have much friendship with him, it's just a one-sided acquaintance. What if he deceives you? Li Tsueyu asked in confusion. Liu Ye firmly said, even if he deceives me, this is still a way to make money. The east is not bright, and the west is bright. In recent years, the people in the production team have become accustomed to farming, and almost no one hunts. However, I think this matter should be kept confidential and done quietly. If everyone follows suit, they will earn less money. Li Tsueyu kept asking, what do you want to do? Are you still the same as yesterday? Are you going to die? Wife, don't worry, I have a solution anyway. There is a bicycle repair shop more than 10 meters ahead. There is a 50% new 28 type bicycle at the entrance of the store, which is sold as a second-hand car for 50 yuan. The Long March brand 28 bicycles in the shopping mall are priced at 178 yuan. A used car costs 50 yuan, really not too expensive. Liu Ye asked, wife, can I discuss something with you? Li Tsueyu thought that Liu Ye wanted to reach out for money again and cautiously asked, what's going on? Liu Ye. I want to buy a second-hand bicycle. Li Tsueyu. Why buy a car? Liu Ye. In the future, if I catch wild game, I will come to the county town to deliver the goods myself. You can wait for your daughter at home and manage the money. Due to their father working at the grain depot, they were considered a wealthy family when they got married. Although there is no big house, it can still be considered a family with bicycles, sewing machines, watches, and radios. In that era, it was called 3 turns and 1 sound. Due to Liu Ye's love for gambling, the 3 turns and 1 sound had already offset his gambling debt. Now, Liu Ye has a legitimate reason to propose buying a semi-old bicycle. Li Tsueyu asked, are you really planning to become a hunter? Liu Ye candidly said, what makes money? As long as I solve the problem of transportation, I can make money. I thought it would take me 4 or 5 hours to walk from Yanzhou to the county town. Li Tsueyu nodded and said, I think we can buy it. With his wife's approval, Liu Ye was overjoyed. I am one step closer to earning big money. After some bargaining with the shop owner, the 28 bicycle was finally sold for 45 yuan. Liu Ye knew very well that if calculated based on the purchasing power of later generations, bicycles at this time were really not cheap. Liu Ye put his bicycle on the cart and pulled it. The journey was too far, and Hua Hua and Lin Lin were lively for a while before falling asleep again. Li Tsueyu covered their faces with a single garment to protect them from the sun. The family returned to Yanzhou, and it was already evening. Liu Ye asked Li Tsueyu to cook dinner at home and returned the flatbed truck to Lu Hanming himself, but Lu Hanming was not at home. Aunt Kong Xueqing heard the noise and immediately crawled out of the kitchen. As soon as they met, Kong Xueqing asked, Wazi, you were injured last night and went to the county town today. Liu Ye smiled and said, Auntie, it's okay. Our farmers have a hard life and we can't even die. Kong Xueqing asked, how much did those games sell for? According to the tone agreed upon with Li Tsueyu, Liu Ye replied, not much. 2 wild wolves and 1 wild rabbit together cost only 25 yuan. Kong Xueqing exclaimed, there's quite a lot. You can buy over 400 kilograms of rice now. Liu Ye sighed helplessly, Auntie, I almost lost my life for those beasts. Kong Xueqing murmured, that one is. At this moment, there was a clang in the yard, which was the sound of plowshares falling to the ground. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Do not want to plant rice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Do not want to plant rice, Xiao Yi, have you come back? Lu Hanming's voice came from the yard. Uncle, did you do it so late? The sun has already set. Liu Ye walked out of the hall and arrived at the small courtyard. Lu Hanming is still holding a big water buffalo in his hand. It can be seen that the belly of the big water buffalo is round and full. Lu Haitao, that bastard, is such a bad person. Yesterday it was his turn to use cows at home, and he let the cows work all day. Surprisingly, he didn't give them anything to eat and led them directly into the cattle pen. When I went to farm with the cows today, their stomachs were so hungry that they could hardly move. Currently, the household contract responsibility system has just been implemented. The production team's dozen or so oxen were divided into more than 10 labor groups. Each group has 10 households. When cattle are needed for farming, they should be used interchangeably within the scope of this group. Cattle are also released in rotation. This operation has created a new problem, which is that unscrupulous farmers only manage to use cattle and do not care about raising them. Lu Haitao is this kind of person. Lu Hanming didn't care about how much the game was sold for. He asked, Xiao Yi, do you plan to plow the wild boar ridge with your 1.3 acre of land or your stubble facing the sky? The time for contracting production to households is after the double grab. The rice seedlings of the second season in fields with good water supply conditions have already grown 5 or 6 inches tall. Some have even worked hard for a second time. In places like Wild Boar Ridge, the heavens haven't rained for months, and even early rice has only been harvested in half. Uncle, I was just thinking about this. Liu Ye pulled out a Pegasus cigarette and handed it to Lu Hanming. Lu Hanming sniffed a cigarette in his nose and asked with a smile, how dare you learn to smoke cigarettes? This thing is not as affordable as my old yellow cigarette. Uncle smiled. This cigarette costs 5 cents per pack. Every penny is money. If possible, try not to waste it. Uncle taught me a lesson. Liu Ye lit his cigarette on his own, took a puff, and said, Uncle, I'm not planning to grow rice on that land anymore. Oh. Lu Hanming felt very surprised. The Wild Boar Ridge has over 10 acres of land, involving 8 farmers. The water supply conditions are not good. Back then, in order to transform these cultivated lands, the labor force of the production team paid a lot. Now Liu Ye has proposed not to plant rice. What do you want to do? Lu Hanming took a sip of the dry tobacco pipe and asked with a slanted gaze. Liu Ye was well aware that due to the lack of water sources, the paddy fields in the Wild Boar Ridge later turned into dry land. Every household no longer grows rice. Uncle, look at this day. It hasn't rained for 3 months. From this weather, I can't wait for rain to grow rice, so I want to quickly replant a sweet potato. Lu Han understood Liu Ye's gaze and asked in response, did you let Hua Hua and Lin Lin grow up eating sweet potatoes specifically? We are used to eating rice, but sweet potatoes are not the staple food. Liu Ye is well aware that an old production team leader like Lu Hanming doesn't have much market economy awareness in his mind. What he couldn't imagine was that many farmers in later generations abandoned their farmland and went directly to cities to work, still earning a lot of money. After hesitating for a moment, Lu Hanming said, Wazi, tomorrow morning, I'll go and help you plow the land first. You can decide what to plant and how to plant it yourself. I can't control it. You've been injured so badly, take care of yourself. Okay. I'll thank you first. Uncle, you help me plow the land, and I'll pay for the labor. Why talk about money without money? Stinky kid, as long as you support your family well and be a good person, Uncle will be happy. Although he is a cousin, Lu Hanming, the old captain, is genuinely good to him. Liu Ye said a few polite words and then returned to his poor family. As soon as he entered the door, Liu Ye smelled the fragrant aroma of the food. On the table, there is a plate of stir-fried cabbage with green peppers and a plate of stir-fried eggs with chili peppers. There is also a small dish of fermented bean curd. This is Liu Ye's first big meal since his rebirth. Compared to later generations, this little life was indeed frugal, but Liu Ye was already very satisfied. Hua Hua and Lin Lin were so drooling when they saw something delicious on the table. Liu Ye is also extremely hungry. All day long, he walked more than 60 miles back and forth, and only ate 3 mantu. He smiled and said, "There are eggs to eat." Li Tsueyu said, "The eggs are all given by Grandma Shan. She keeps more than 10 hens and can pick up more than 10 eggs every day. The 2 elderly people can't finish eating them, so they bring them over to help Hua Hua and Lin Lin replenish their bodies." "Oh, you guys are still having dinner." The small door creaked and was pushed open by someone. An old lady with small feet walked in. She is Grandma Shan. Liu Ye only knows that she is an old woman from Luzushan, and as for her real name, he really doesn't know. "Grandma Shan, have you eaten?" Li Tsueyu moved out a stool and gestured for Grandma Shan to sit down. Grandma Shan refused. The old man finished work early today. Grandma Shan is not tall, only about 1.55 meters. Under the heavy pressure of life, the wrinkles on her face were like pine bark. That shameless Dong Hai asked his old man for 20 yuan today, saying he ran out of money to buy fertilizer. It really angered me. His old man is 63 years old, and he actually wants to ask his old man for money. Is this still human? Lu Zushan has 4 sons. Lu Donghai, Lu Dongfeng, Lu Dongwen, and Lu Chunhai. The boss Lu Donghai is already in his early 40s and is also a gambler. What he said about not having money to buy fertilizer is definitely false. Gambling without money is the truth. Liu Ye is too clear about Grandma Shan's experience. So, when he saw her, his heart was always full of mixed flavors. Because Lu Zushan will die in just 1 year. After Lu Zushan's death, Grandma Shan had to wander around the world again. In this life, tragedy must never be repeated. Li Tsueyu said, "Grandma Shan, Dong Hai is not a good person either. Did you give him the money?" Grandma Shan said, "No. Where did I get the money? Besides farming and growing vegetables, Lao Wang Tu and I have 2 pigs and a dozen chickens as our side jobs. We barely make ends meet, how can we afford to give him money? Besides, he has 4 sons, which one has any future prospects?" Liu Ye. Grandma Shan, you did the right thing. Whether you have money or not, you have to save some money to keep you company. You can't rely on Grandpa Shan's 4 sons. Grandma Shan pouted and said disdainfully, "My son needs to be born, and the land needs to be deeply cultivated. I never thought about relying on them. The big deal is death. After I die, my hard work will come to an end. Yen Wangye is not good to me, it is the evil I created in my previous life. I have been cultivating my heart all this life." Grandma Shan is still chatting with Li Tsueyu. Hua Hua and Lin Lin have already dozed off. Their thin and weak bodies couldn't bear the tiredness of the whole day. Both of them were like chickens pecking at rice, sitting on tables and chairs ready to fall off at any time. Liu Ye carried Hua Hua and Lin Lin to bed to sleep, picked up a bucket himself and prepared to go to the well to fetch water. There is no water in the water tank. On this hot day, I didn't even take a shower. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Wife helps clean up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Wife helps clean up. Grandma Shan, please help me keep an eye on the child at home while I go fetch water. Li Tsueyu put down the bowls and chopsticks in her hand, snatched the pole from Liu Ye's hand, gave him a white glance, and angrily said, "You almost died yesterday, and today you've been tired for another day. You still want to show off, don't you want to live? Although he was scolded, Liu Ye's heart was as sweet as drinking honey. Li Tsueyu is not only beautiful, but also kind-hearted. In the previous life, if it weren't for forcing her to not survive, how could she have gone to a dead end? Currently, it is still in hot weather. Yanziao has no tap water. If I don't take a shower, I really can't live my life. The villagers take showers in two categories. Men go to the pond in front of the village to wash, while women boil a basin of hot water at home and sit in a wooden basin to take a bath. On the way, Li Tsueyu muttered to herself, Liu Ye, today we only focus on selling game and forget one big thing. Liu Ye asked in confusion, what big deal? Li Tsueyu said, you've been injured so badly that I forgot to take you to the county hospital for a check-up. If there were any internal injuries, it wouldn't be a joke, it could be fatal. Liu Ye salivated and said, thank you for your concern. I've only suffered skin injuries, and once the wounds scar, I'll be fine. You just know how to be talkative. Li Tsueyu angrily said, how about you show some real skills? That's necessary. Liu Ye said confidently. Next, he recounted the story of the wild boar ridge once again. Li Tsueyu and Lu Hanming share the same view that they will no longer grow rice and instead switch to dry crops such as sweet potatoes and sorghum. Liu Ye explained again, if there is no rice to eat at home, you can buy from farmers or grain stations. As long as you can earn money, you won't starve to death. Li Tsueyu let out a deep sigh and cursed, your luck is really poor. While others have drawn rice paddies, our family has drawn wild boar fields. The wild boars there are crowding in groups, and even if we plant food, it's difficult to reap a harvest. Liu Ye sneered, don't we have brother Jiang Jinliang? Those wild boars are all money. Li Tsueyu, who was walking ahead, couldn't help but stop and ask, are you really planning to take those birds and animals for surgery? How can I get rich without them? I have a prescription for a potion, and I can make a 5-shot crossbow. What kind of beast can escape? The prescription for overpowering drugs and the 5 consecutive crossbows are skills learned in the previous life, which remain in Liu Ye's memory. Now take it out and use it, it's time for emergency. Li Tsueyu sighed and said, Liu Ye, if you don't gamble or brag, we can barely make ends meet. Otherwise, I'll have to be driven crazy by you. It's better to get a divorce than not live well. Don't leave. Liu Ye decisively refused, I want you to become the most famous wealthy lady in Raozhou County. Upon hearing these words, Li Tsueyu almost didn't give Liu Ye a shoulder pull and cursed, Liu Ye, if you don't brag, you will die. Don't you know what kind of virtue you are? Liu Ye couldn't help but secretly complain. My words are true. In Li Tsueyu's view, she has become a boastful king. Tsueyu, I don't want to argue with you. Today next year, just remember what I said. Okay, I'll wait. During the conversation, the well arrived. A figure moved over. It turns out to be Lu Zushan. Grandpa Shan, you haven't rested so late yet? Li Tsueyu asked. Lu Zushan was carrying a load of water, feeling a bit panting. He simply put down his burden and stopped to explain, the weather is cool in the morning and evening, so it's easy to do things. Tomorrow morning, I'm also going up the mountain to chop some firewood. I have to admit that Grandma Shan has been living a happy life with Lu Zushan for a while. Every penny earned by Lu Zushan will be handed over to Grandma Shan. No wonder those unruly sons would stare at Grandma Shan's money bag. You guys are busy. I'll leave first. Lu Zushan took a breath and carried a load of water back home. He obviously didn't care about the argument between the young couple. At his age, he probably saw through everything. The young couple had an argument, and he didn't even have the interest to follow. I don't care what I plant, I just want to be a wealthy lady. Li Tsueyu spoke and the bucket was thrown into the well with a splash. Shaking a few times, she lifted a bucket full of water and then poured another bucket. Liu Ye sighed inwardly, his wife is quite capable, why didn't he know how to cherish her in his previous life? Wife, let me do the heavy work instead. Liu Ye wants to snatch Li Cueyu's shoulder pole. Get lost. I can still carry this little water. A big man was forced to rest by his wife because he was slightly injured. A hint of sweetness and guilt surged in Liu Ye's heart. Liu Ye had already broken Li Cueyu's heart, but she still had genuine kindness towards herself. What a great woman. Upon returning home, Grandma Shan was still taking care of Hua Hua and Lin Lin. She only got up and left when she saw the young couple carrying water home. You two can go down to work in the future and leave Hua Hua and Lin Lin to me. I'm free anyway. When she was about to leave, Grandma Shan didn't forget to give an explanation. Li Cueyu poured half a pot of water and lit the firewood on the stove. In no time, the water in the pot heated up. She scooped water from an enamel basin and poured it into a large wooden basin, saying coldly, Liu Ye, take off your clothes and I'll help you wipe your back. Okay, wife. Liu Ye was a little excited. I have been married for 5 years, and my daughter is already 4 years old. This is the first time Li Cueyu has wiped his body. I walked back and forth for over 60 miles in a day. Liu Ye's vest is covered in salt frost, with a white layer. My body and clothes have been soaked in sweat time and time again. How can I sleep peacefully without washing them? Li Cueyu gently wiped Liu Ye's back with a hot towel. The back was scratched by wolf claws with many scars. She tried her best not to let the towel touch the external injury. After wiping it, Li Cueyu wiped the scar on Liu Ye's back again with aged rapeseed oil. There is no cotton swab at home, Li Cueyu uses her fingers to apply oil. Every time she comes into contact, one can imagine how big a psychological barrier she needs to overcome. After all, she is not a professional nursing staff. In no time, Liu Ye heard Li Cueyu's voice. You can wash it yourself in the front. Liu Ye is wearing shorts in the summer. Li Cueyu also wears very few clothes. With a shower, a refreshing feeling struck. Liu Ye's body also underwent subtle changes. Seeing the shape of Liu Ye's wet shorts propped up, Li Cueyu's pretty face turned red and she quickly turned around and walked out the door. After taking a shower, Liu Ye changed his clothes and walked into the bedroom wearing flip-flops. Li Cueyu was staring at the sleeping posture of the 2 babies in a daze. Son of a bitch, you should also wash up. The weather is too hot. Liu Ye said. Li Cueyu stood up silently and returned to the kitchen. In no time, a gurgling sound of flowing water came from the kitchen. The semi-new Long March bicycle is placed against the wall in the bedroom. At this moment, Liu Ye's gaze fell on a piece of wood. He thought to himself that he would make a 5-shot crossbow by himself tomorrow. When Li Cueyu came out, her hair was washed wet and still steaming hot. She only wore a vest and shorts, with snow-white skin and a graceful figure, revealing everything in front of Liu Ye. Seeing Liu Ye staring blankly at the wooden hair, Li Cueyu coldly asked, "Are you not tired yet?" End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Wild Boar Ridge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Wild Boar Ridge. Wife, go to bed first. I'm thinking about making a 5-shot crossbow. Liu Ye picked up the piece of wood and found a pencil from the drawer. He gestured, and then he had a hint of emotion in his heart. The next morning, when Li Cueyu woke up, Liu Ye had been busy in the yard for several hours. A 5-shot crossbow had just begun to take shape. Just by attaching the bow strings and pairing them with arrows, an ancient and lethal weapon was successfully crafted. Liu Ye, did you stay up all night? Li Cueyu got out of bed with sleepy eyes and walked to the yard wearing a flip-flop. Liu Ye gestured and smiled, "Wife, this is the tool we use to get rich. This matter needs to be kept confidential." Today, I am preparing to develop anesthesia. With these two things, it will be difficult for any wolf, tiger, or leopard to escape. Li Tzueyu gave a seductive glance and angrily said, I want to see how strong your bragging skills are. Liu Ye was shot while lying down, feeling helpless. After all, Liu Ye before was a genuine scumbag. A man who can't even take care of his wife and children has no sense of trust. Based on his past life memories, Liu Ye went up the mountain to collect a large amount of raw materials such as aconitum and datura. He pounded these herbs on a stone bowl and made 10 bows and arrows from bamboo. After finishing these tasks, it was already evening. Due to Liu Ye's injury and Liu Hanming's support in plowing, Li Tzueyu did not think he was idle. Li Tzueyu carried a large bundle of firewood into the courtyard and saw a white paper hanging on the outer wall. 5 circles are drawn on the white paper. Liu Ye drew his big bow and shot 5 bamboo arrows at once, each of which could hit a circle. Seeing Li Tzueyu, Liu Ye exclaimed excitedly, Wife, I succeeded. Tonight, I soaked a night's sweat medicine with bows and arrows, and I can go into the mountain tomorrow. Li Tzueyu was deeply moved when she saw 5 bamboo arrows inserted into the earthen wall, but remained calm on the surface. She asked, How is your injury? Let me take a look. Opening Liu Ye's clothes, he saw that those terrifying scratches had already begun to scab. This is a positive trend. She asked again, Where are your 2 daughters? Liu Ye. I took them both to my grandmother's house and also bought 2 kilograms of pigs along the way. Li Tzueyu's maternal home is located in the neighboring Liangtaotang production team, 1 mile away from Yanzhou. Liu Ye rode the semi-new and old 28 big shoulder bike for only a few minutes. Is my mom okay? Okay. Hua Hua and Lin Lin are so happy to see grandma. That's good. I'll go cook dinner. The night is getting darker. At such times, it is difficult for ordinary people to see the small circles on the white paper on the wall with the naked eye, but Liu Ye can see them as clearly as during the day. I practiced archery for another half hour, and dinner was cooked. During dinner, Li Tzueyu asked, Liu Ye, is your 5-pronged crossbow really that powerful? Liu Ye admitted, I haven't gone through actual combat yet, and I don't know either. I'm planning to go to the Wild Boar Ridge tomorrow. I'm going too. Li Tzueyu said firmly. It can be seen that the main reason why she wants to go is because she is worried about Liu Ye's safety. Sure enough, her next sentence was. You haven't recovered from your serious injury yet, I'm not at ease. Okay. Let's go together. Liu Ye happily agreed. This wife who talks about wanting to divorce herself is actually an aversion to her gambling and laziness. In her heart, she still has feelings for herself as an unreliable man. Liu Ye felt another wave of guilt. How could my past self be so confused? The good woman in front of her was forced to death by life. There was nothing to say overnight. The next morning, Liu Hanming knocked on Liu Ye's door and said that the 1/3 of the wild boar field had been plowed, waiting for Liu Ye to sow. Liu Ye said a few words of gratitude, took out a 2 yuan banknote, and said, Uncle, this is Kung Fu money. Please accept it. Liu Hanming bounced away as if he had been stung by a bee and said angrily, Xiao Yi, as a family, we say money is not money. I just finished half of the work, it's a small gesture. Without waiting for Liu Ye to distinguish, Liu Hanming left. Li Tzueyu glared at Liu Ye and said, You owe Uncle Ming another favor. To be honest, if it weren't for Liu Hanming's kind help, Liu Ye wouldn't really want that 1/3 acre of arable land. Farming is necessary to solve stomach problems. If we calculate the economic account, it is actually a loss-making transaction. According to Liu Ye's experience as a person in 2 generations, few people make a fortune by farming. Liu Ye put his crossbows and bamboo arrows into a snakeskin bag, picked up a load of pig manure, and went to the Wild Boar Ridge with Li Tzueyu. It wasn't until we arrived at the Wild Boar Ridge that we found out that this field ridge had a total of more than 10 acres, all of which had been plowed, but no crops had been planted. It seemed that every household was waiting for the rain. Lu Hanming really did a good job in farming. After half a day of hard work, that acre of land has become as flat as a playground. The wild grass and stubble that have been plowed have all wilted and turned yellow after being exposed to the sun, making them suitable as fertilizers. Liu Ye spent half a day turning the fields that should have been planted with rice into sweet potato ridges. Li Tsueyu knew at a glance that this was to grow sweet potatoes, not rice. From a seasonal perspective, today is the 11th day of the 7th lunar month. The time for planting second season rice has long passed. Rushing to plant sweet potatoes may also lead to a bountiful harvest. But Xie Bin still pressed against Liu Ye's heart like a stone. This rogue leader's crimes are already enough to eat peanuts. He will definitely not be lenient towards his 3,000 yuan debt. It's only 9 days away from July 19th. It is not an easy task to gather 3,000 yuan. At noon, Li Tsueyu took out 2 lunch boxes from her bag. The couple had a simple lunch in the field, and after more than 2 hours of busyness, the sweet potato fields were all cooked. Liu Ye put the load of pig manure into the prepared hole and spent more than an hour. The entire Wild Boar Ridge is quiet. Apart from the scorching sun, it is the lush greenery in the eyes. Sitting in the shadow of the ground for a while to rest, Liu Ye patted the dust on his buttocks and said, "Wife, let's go make money." There are 10 bamboo arrows soaked in anesthesia in the arrow bag. Liu Ye pulled Li Tsueyu and quietly stroked towards the deep forest of the Wild Boar Ridge. As she walked towards the secret, Li Tsueyu became timid. She held on to Liu Ye's hand tightly, as if afraid that he might fly. After all these years of marriage, Li Tsueyu has never been as intimate with Liu Ye as she is today. Even if she lives a married life, she just turns off the lights, closes her eyes, and is tormented by Liu Ye, like handing in homework. More than 10 minutes later, a black shadow appeared before and after. That is a chubby wild boar. From the neck, the weight will not be less than 200 pounds. The wild boar stared foolishly at the young couple, causing Li Tsueyu to scream and dive directly into Liu Ye's arms. "Liu Ye, I'm afraid." End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Spare no effort. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Spare no effort. Wild boars are fat and clumsy, with endless strength. Once angered, its killing power is astonishing. If you get hit by it, you'll be seriously injured even if you don't die. The wild boar with shiny black hair also saw Liu Ye and Li Tsueyu. It not only had no intention of running, but also raised its ears and its eyes were full of alertness. Liu Ye gently comforted Li Tsueyu and quietly inserted 5 bamboo arrows soaked in anesthesia into the crossbow. In the past, when working as a large collective, the production team organized a large number of male laborers who even carried firearms. These people only need to wander in the dense forest of the Wild Boar Ridge for half a day. The forest must be bustling with people and explosions, causing birds and animals to flee to other hills. There are only 2 people now, and there is no firearm yet. The courage of the wild boar has obviously increased, and they have hardly taken the young couple seriously. Liu Ye pulled a round bow and crossbow, hissing and shooting 5 bamboo arrows like raindrops into the body of a wild boar. The wild boar suffered severe pain and let out a roar, then ran towards Liu Ye and Li Tsueyu. This action frightened Liu Ye into silence. In case the anesthetic fails or the medicine is not strong enough, with the fat body of a wild boar, it is enough for the young couple to drink a pot. Liu Ye grabbed Li Tsueyu's hand and shouted, "Hurry up." Li Tsueyu's legs were weak, and she was forcefully pulled by Liu Ye, half dragging and half pulling. She also had to be bound by weeds, and neither of them could run fast. At the beginning, Inoue's attack was very fierce. The plump body crushed a large area of weeds. It only ran 50 or 60 meters before crashing to the ground and could no longer move. Liu Ye heard the noise and turned around to look at it, feeling happy. He stopped immediately and smiled, "Wife, there's no need to run. That beast has fallen." Approaching, Liu Ye noticed that 2 bamboo arrows had been shot into the head of the wild boar. The other 3 bamboo arrows were shot into the wild boar's front scapula. Liu Ye rushed forward, swung the axe he carried with him, and pounded the wild boar's head fiercely. Every time it falls, the wild boar will twitch a few times. After playing continuously for more than 10 minutes, the wild boar was completely isolated. Currently, the price of domestic pork is 70 cents per kilogram. The city people's love for game, as well as the rarity of game, can slightly increase the price of wild boar meat. Liu Ye exclaimed excitedly, "Wife, we're getting rich again." Li Tsueyu's face also showed a hint of smile. It can be seen that she is really happy this time. After all, Liu Ye and her life's safety have not been threatened yet, and the wild boar is dead. A wild boar weighing around 200 pounds was forcefully embraced by Liu Ye, and he fell over his shoulder before carrying it down the mountain. The couple had already prepared 2 large snake skin bags, 1 head and 1 tail, and tightly fitted the wild boar. If you encounter a villager, as long as they don't intentionally open the snake skin bag, they won't find what's inside. Li Tsueyu asked, "Liu Ye, do you really think that Jiang Jinliang will take our family's game? This is actually a big problem." In this era, communication was not as advanced as in later generations. Just make a phone call, there's nothing to talk about. Liu Ye had a sudden idea and said, "I'll ride my bike to the county town to find Lao Jiang. It would be best if I could bring him some gifts, such as tea oil and eggs." As a person of 2 generations, Liu Ye understands the importance of human relationships too well. If we can establish a good relationship with Jiang Jinliang, it will not be difficult to make a fortune. A large factory with thousands of people, promoting a little game is not a big deal. The young couple put in a lot of effort and finally brought the wild boar home. At the first moment, Liu Ye tied the wild boar wrapped in a snake skin bag to the back shelf of the 28 poles. If we say, last time Jiang Jinliang was out of sympathy, today should be considered as the first truly meaningful commercial activity. Li Tsueyu took out a few pounds of eggs, cloth shoes in both hands, and a small pot of tea oil from the inner room and said, "These things are all for Master Jiang. You have to act according to the situation and not be seen. Seeing them will not have a good impact." I understand. To be honest, carrying a wild boar on 2 or 8 large bars is indeed quite heavy. And it also takes about 30 miles to walk. When Liu Ye arrived at the county town, it was already over 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Liu Ye found a public telephone booth and dialed the number provided by Jiang Jinliang last time. Jiang Jinliang happened to be in the office. Upon hearing that Liu Ye had brought a wild boar, Jiang Jinliang exclaimed excitedly, "I'm in the office. You should bring it over immediately." The security guard at the gate has known Liu Ye since last time. This time entering the factory, Liu Ye had no difficulty at all. He found the cafeteria with ease, where Jiang Jinliang and Xiao Fan had already waited. Xiao Fan and Liu Ye jointly weighed the wild boar, 210 pounds. Jiang Jinliang smiled and said, "The taste of wild boar meat is more authentic than that of domesticated pigs, and it doesn't have much fat. How about 80 cents per kilogram?" Liu Ye replied repeatedly, "Okay. Master Jiang, we will do as you said." A wild boar sold for 168 yuan, which is enough to cover the wages of industrial workers for more than half a year. There are countless wild boars in the Wild Boar Ridge. After completing the procedures, Liu Ye followed Jiang Jinliang to the office. Jiang Jinliang personally issued a receipt and stamped it with the official seal of Pioneer Machinery Factory, apologizing, "Xiao Lu, the finance department has already finished work and we cannot get the money today. If you are interested in cooperating with me, how about settling the account every 10 days? Close the account every 10 days. This settlement method is already very favorable. Liu Ye is well aware that in a few years, the triangle debt in society will become rampant. Many manufacturers even owe too much debt and simply shut down their doors. Jiang Jinliang saw Liu Ye's slight carelessness and smiled. Xiao Lu, you don't have to worry too much. The expenses of the cafeteria are guaranteed first, and they are even more timely than the payments for the workshop. I guarantee with my personality, and I will prioritize your money. There are only two people in the office, Liu Ye and Jiang Jinliang. Liu Ye simply said, Brother Jiang, to thank you for taking care of our family, my wife personally brought you a pair of cloth shoes, as well as some eggs and a pot of tea oil. Anyway, since it's almost time to finish work now, I still want to invite you to a restaurant together. Jiang Jinliang waved his hand and said firmly, if you go out to the restaurant, it's free. I'll take the local specialties, after all, it's a gesture of goodwill from my younger siblings. Okay, thank you, Brother Jiang. Brother Jiang has time to visit Yanzhou and let me make a good meal. Please have a drink of our locally brewed rice wine. Okay. According to the agreement, Liu Ye pushed his bicycle to a small alley more than 100 meters away from the Pioneer factory, and waited for 5 minutes before seeing Jiang Jinliang riding the 28 bar over. Jiang Jinliang received cloth shoes, eggs, and tea oil, and his face also burst into laughter. I didn't expect my younger siblings to be so thoughtful. I'm really grateful. Liu Ye took the opportunity to say, Big brother, can you help me settle my account before the 18th day of the 7th lunar month? I'm in a hurry to use the money. The creditor of that high-interest loan is a rogue leader, and people from all over the country are afraid of him. I'm worried that something might happen. Jiang Jinliang raised his eyebrows and asked, You can kill 2 wild wolves alone, but you're afraid of a little rascal. Liu Ye knows that Xia Bin is not a little rascal. In the previous life, this person was caught in a nationwide crackdown at the end of the year and ate peanuts directly. It can be said that he belongs to the category of deeply guilty criminals. Liu Ye explained, there are 2 reasons. Firstly, I owe him a high-interest loan, which I am truly at a loss. Secondly, I have a wife and children. If he were to harm my family, it would make it difficult for me to defend myself. After a moment of contemplation, Jiang Jinliang said, I understand your feelings. I will also arrange the money matter. During this period, the business in the factory has been particularly good, and the cafeteria has hosted business units from various departments, with more than 10 tables per meal. 2 meals a day, big fish and big meat are common at home. Only the delicacies of mountains and seas can be considered of high quality. In addition to wild game, you can also find a way to sell wild vegetables, winter bamboo shoots, winter mushrooms, and other things. How about I take all your things by order? Okay, thank you very much for your kindness. I will never forget Liu Ye. Jiang Jinliang smiled and said, Don't be polite, I'm also doing work. Besides, the price I offered is slightly lower than the market price, which makes the finance department able to withstand scrutiny. Liu Ye was well aware that in this era, state-owned enterprises not only had business needs, but also had customers from unclear higher-level departments who came to inspect in name, but in reality, they would not leave once they arrived and needed to eat before leaving. Eating and drinking is indeed a persistent illness. After the 1990s, state-owned and collective enterprises in difficult situations went bankrupt and restructured, becoming private enterprises. It should be said that the current situation is still considered the golden period for collective enterprises. End of this chapter.